Alright, this should be recording now. Hi, I am Albino Raven, as known on Steam in the Primal Carnage community. I'm normally not much of a video maker, so please excuse any blunders or stammerings, as I'm probably not going to edit this, but what I wanted to show you guys is how to edit some of these skins using Photoshop, because a lot of people have 3D Coat and all those other programs, and I personally did not want to pay for a new program. So during my digging around, I discovered that the newer versions of Photoshop have the ability to paint 3D models, which is awesome because I have Photoshop from my old graphic design days. I don't have to buy a new program. And if you wanted to get Photoshop Creative Cloud yourself, I think it's only like 10 to 20 bucks a month rather than just purchasing a whole new program for, upwards of $500. So yeah, this is what I discovered. So I'm going to walk you through this. My screen is big, so I'm sorry if it's a little hard to see anything. But up here I have a little folder that says Halloween dinos because I've been all up in that. And let's see, I have up here the dinosaur files. I'm going to show you guys a really quick thing with, I don't know, maybe a zombie skin. So I've already done a raptor and a rex. I'm gonna do the Ovi because I did that one before, and it's gonna be fun to update it. So in here you will see the Oviraptor object files and then a folder that says texture. Down here on my dock I have Photoshop all lined up and ready to use. So what I'm going to do is click on this object file and drag it into Photoshop. You can get Photoshop and stuff on Windows too. I don't know exactly if you can drag it into Photoshop like that, or if it's just a Mac thing, but you should be able to open it. Anyways, you come to this thing that looks pretty traditional to opening a new document in Photoshop. But what we're going to do is adjust it so that we can see the 3D model well on our screen. So I'm actually going to go to where it says presets and underneath. I'm going to change the unit of measure to pixels because my brain makes sense of pixels. You can use inches if you would like. I'm going to set this to 3000 by 3000 as I like to use a square frame of reference, and you can change that once you're in anyways using the crop tool. And I'm going to set the resolution to 300 pixels per inch. I think it defaults upon exporting to 72 anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. I just find that it allows me to do more detail during the fact. So once I have all that set up, I'm going to click OK. Excuse me. And we have our model. Now quickly, if you follow my mouse up to the right hand side of Photoshop, in fact I will blow this up in a minute, but the right hand side of Photoshop you see these tools. The black arrow tool at the top is very important. It allows me to turn the environment. You do not want to turn the model. If you do, it obscures things, and if you end up clicking on this square, it'll turn the model, but you want to turn the background. Clicking undo, which is Command Z for me, Control Z for Windows, will undo those things too, but it's not exactly necessary. Anyways, we have our model. You can tell that it is naked. It has no textures on it, and all that fun jazz. Over here, I'm going to point out some other quick tools. This is my Navigator, which you can find in the Windows section. If I'm zoomed out or really closely zoomed in, it allows me to easily navigate around without having to use the sliders on the bottom and right hand side of the document. Down here you have the layers. The layers on the actual 3D model are not all that important, but I have also set up this little 3D tab right here, which gives me all of this information. That tab can be brought down here by going up to Windows, 3D, and then you can choose where you want it. And I put it in the layers section because I found that pretty convenient. Anyways, what you have down here is a current view, which is a camera, some lighting stuff, which we don't really mess with, and then here we actually have the object files themselves. So we have this part is the body, and this part are the feathers. And that is what is important. So if you notice right here and right here, those are actual files that we'll be putting textures on. I don't know what the technical terms are here. I'm just kind of winging it. Anyways, so before we get into that, we see all this stuff. I'm going to quickly make a change. I'm going to click B, which gives me my brush tool, and it changed the properties that I can look at up here. Under render settings, I'm going to click unlit because I don't like it being on. It doesn't give you the real color, it just gives you an estimation on the shading of this object. And as you can tell, it made my model look completely flat. We'll change that in a second. Up here, back in properties, there's a little paintbrush icon, which is where I adjusted the unlit stuff. We're also going to go up to where it says paint system, and right here, and change texture to projection. When you try painting directly on the model with texture, it really takes into account the seams of the different parts, and it kind of jerks it around and makes it harder to paint. Projection kind of just lets you do whatever you want with it, which is what I like to use. This little icon right here, which I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to be, whatever, is where we're going to click on next. So make sure that you are clicking on one of these two MI files down here. I'm going to click on MI Season Base UV1 20700, not on the thing on top of it. That's the actual one I want. Then up here where it says diffuse, I'm going to click on that, and you have these options. You have new texture, replace texture, remove texture, and then edit texture. We're just going to go right to edit texture. What that did is it opened up another file that is a child file of the parent file which we are working on, which as you can see is from, if you've ever actually just painted on the flat surfaces rather than using the 3D models, it's the layout of the different parts of the skin. So what we're going to do now is check our layers. That's good. We're going to leave it right there. We're going to go back into the OV file and go into the textures. Excuse me. I don't know, once again, if you can drag and place in Windows. You might need to do that manually by going to File. But what I can do here is find the texture file and just drag it right on in and click Enter. It looks good. And then going over to our layers, I'm actually going to create a new layer and choose either multiply or overlay. That makes the painting on this layer transparent, so you can paint over it and see what the base still looks like underneath it. And when you put it into the editor, it either uses an overlay or a diffuse system anyways, so these are the two that you want to use. Doing multiply will make it darker, using overlay will make it lighter. Both will slightly change the colors, it's just something you have to deal with. I'm going to choose multiply. Then I'm just going to hit Command Save or Control Save for Command S or Control S for you Windows users. Then I'm going to go back to my Oviraptor model, and you can see that the texture is placed on top of it. That's pretty awesome. In the 3D section again, which is right next to where I've set the layers, we're going to go down to the next one, which is the wings, right here. And once again, we're going to go into the sub one, the MI Season Base UV2 _ 20700. We're going to go up to here and click on Diffuse and Edit Texture. And we got this. Check out our layers, go to our program, our texture files, and drag in the texture. Make a new layer, change it to multiply, and hit save. I totally was going to say something, but I can't remember. Oh, when making the file, you have to, when you first had the options, like the 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels is what I chose. You also have to keep in mind that these texture files need to be able to fit in them, and if you stretch things out too much, they start getting fuzzy, which isn't very accurate when you're trying to paint on something. So I tend to keep it underneath 5000 by 5000 pixels. Anyways, we have that saved, and now our model looks like this. Don't worry that you can't see the entire texture with the wings. It does that for the feathered Novaraptor too. It's just part of what this thing does. Anyways, some quick things before we get right into the painting. You can make your workspace larger by hitting C, which is crop, and you can pull the bounding box a little wider so that when you spin your OV, its tail doesn't go vanishing off the side of the page. Hit enter to activate that, and hit V to go back to your black arrow, which allows you to rotate. I'm going to quickly show you how you can either paint on either the skin textures or the model, and it'll affect it. So I'm actually going to close these out, hit save. It's okay, they are still saved. They are a part of your parent file, so you don't have to worry about closing them out. What you do have to worry about is sometimes this gets a little bugged, where you need to actually be clicking on the I have no idea what this actually called, but the MI, the mesh, you actually need to be clicking on that when you're editing. Otherwise, it will some sort of disconnect will happen between the parent and the child folder, and then you might paint on the skin, but it won't turn up on the model. What that can be fixed, but it's kind of annoying when you don't realize it and you've put in a lot of work and you have to start over. So, anyways, I'm actually going to show you how this can be done. I'm going to go back to my edit texture and look on here, and I'm also going, no, I'm going to scratch that. I'm going to go to my color palette, and I'm going for a zombie a zombie OV, so I'm going to pick a kind of grayish pink color for its flesh, and using my paint bucket tool, just drop that right in there. And so long as it's connected properly, yep, it is now brown too. And I don't really like that brown, so I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. Go up to the beige pink colors. Yeah, there you go. Excellent. And to keep it consistent while I still have this color selected, I'm going to go to my feathers and making sure I'm on the right layer. Also add that color and save it. So there you go, you have that. And I don't want to take up too much of your time because for me this is more so just trying to get you guys to understand how to use the program. But I can either paint on the model, so if I want to give him a nasty wound, I'm going to pick some dark red. I'm going to go to my brush selection, make sure I have picked a solid brush, and then you can draw directly on the model, like so. Using the paint bucket, I'm going to fill that guy in. And it looks like he has like a really poorly drawn gash, which I can add other things. Here's the selection tool, the magic wand tool is what I just grabbed. I can select the inside of that wound and then changing up some colors and zooming in. If I wanted to make it look like it had bones, I'm going to take some black and add some dark texture around where I know the bone is going to be for a bit of shadow. And a little bit around the edges because the wound is under the skin and I like to give a bit of shading. Then some white, make sure I have the solid brush, and I'm going to bump that opacity up to 100%. And there is a very quickly and poorly drawn bone. Now these colors are very similar, so when I try to select the bone, oh, it worked. But sometimes, based off of the tolerance, it will select any colors that are far too similar to it too. But we don't have to worry about that, so I'm going to quickly add some nasty aging bone color on the bone here, because he is a zombie. He's supposed to have been around for a while. Command Z, as I said, is undo or Control Z, and Command Option Z allows you to go back more than one space. I love key commands. They're a saint. They have saved my butt. They make me not go insane. Anyway, so there we have that bone, and it's a little hard to see, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take some black, make it a really small brush, and up to 100% opacity, and I'm using a fuzzy brush for this, and I kind of make it look like the skin has rips. And you don't have to use black for that either. I mean, I'm using it right now because it's fast, but using a brown or something might make it look a bit less, solid. Or a little bit less dramatic, if that's what you're going for. And plus, this isn't supposed to be a tutorial about how to draw gross-looking 3D wounds. This is more so how to use Photoshop. So, yeah, there we go. I have that done. And then, I don't know. Well, I'm going to stop there for any crazy detail. I'm going to look at this, And you can actually see, if we zoom down here, that it has painted on here. And you can also see that a disconnect has happened. As I said, sometimes the files kind of mess up, because on here, the black is going all around the wound. On here, it stopped doing that. That just simply means that for whatever reason, the parent-child relationship of these folders was broken. So I'm just going to exit out of this. I'm going to hit Don't Save, because it's still saved on the model. Now, if you try to do this the other way, if you do a lot of work on the texture and then the connections gets broken and you exit, it'll be lost. There's nothing you can do to change that, which is why I usually prefer to paint directly on the model, because what I can do is go back into this, going up to the diffuse and edit texture, and it fixes itself. Because it's on the model, it'll now be on the MI file. So we have that. Looking here, sorry, phone call. Looking here, I'm gonna quickly add just a bit of texture around the eye. Oop, too much black. Maybe throw in some shading, though. In my last one, the beak was bone, which I kind of liked. So we're gonna do that. And I'm just doing this really quickly to get my point across. Yeah. And then selecting that bone, lower the opacity, put it to black, add some shading, and add some gross, nasty aging bone yellowness. And if I want to get too crazy, I can also add in some veins. You know, maybe he's kind of still slightly skinned there or something. I don't know. So, veins. Alright, and so long as the connection is still there, yep, it appeared on the beak. Awesome. Going into the feathers quickly, I'm going to leave that for the body just because I don't want to waste too much of your time. So I'm going to actually exit out of there, hit save. Going into the tail, I'm going to add some black if my Photoshop doesn't explode on me. Spinning wheel of death. Alright, let's give that 5 seconds. Oh, it crashed. That's always fun. And I didn't save. But these are some of the things that happen, so all I can really do to fix this is just drag it back in. Do what I did before, which is go away. Alright, which is change this to pixels, make it 3000 by 3000 at 300 dpi, or ppi. DPI is InDesign. Let that open. Oh, it saved it. Oh, that was convenient. Alright, excellent. So we can actually exit out of this new one and keep this old one. Yay, auto recovery. Anyways, what we're going to do is go back to 3D, click on the base that is our feathers, edit the texture, and let's add some blood into those feathers. Ew. Oh, the opacity's down. Some wound. I don't know why there's wound on a feather, but why not? Science. Alright. And then, yeah, why not? And we can add some shade. Yeah, shade. Alright. And that should, yeah, it did color on the feathers too. Awesome. The only thing that looks like it didn't save very well on here was a lot of detail. Like the bone part was not saved, the beak part wasn't saved, but whatever. Not going to waste your time doing that anymore. Because what I want to show you now is how to, save and export what you need to export to get it into the editor. So I'm actually going to quickly save this guy. Just hit Command Shift S for me, but I don't know what that is for Windows. Under Halloween Dinos, I'm going to name this Trial Undead OV. And just hit save, which I should have done from the beginning, but whatever. Then going into the skins, hit Edit Texture. What we're actually going to do here is there are requirements before you can get them into the skin editor. I'm going to go to image size. It can only be 512 by 512 except for the acro, which can be different, but I don't know exactly what the measurements are for that. So we're going to do 512 width by 512 pixels, and it's going to default to 72 resolution, which I'm going to let it do. Then where it says multiply, we are actually going to go put this back to normal. I know it looks stupid and flat, but that's how the editor works. When you save it as a target file or TGA file or however you pronounce it, it saves like this anyways. So put it to normal, and then go to File, Save As. I'm just going to stick it on my desktop. And this is just the body, so I'm going to put Trial Undead OV underscore body. Body. And we're going to save that under this format thing. We're going to save that as a Targa file or TGA file. Hit save. That looks good, 24 bits per pixel. Hit OK. And then if you look over here on my desktop, we have this file right here. And then I'm going to go over back to my object file. Yeah, that's what happens. And we're going to go to the feathers, do the same thing, hit edit texture, go to image size, which is up in your image options, hit 512, OK. Put this layer back to normal, hit save as, desktop. I'm actually going to click right on the undead OV so I can just change the term body to feathers, save it as a targa, and hit save. Okay. And from this point on, you would open things up in editor. I do not have a screen recording system on my PC, so what I would, and nor can I run the editor on my Mac, so what I would do at this point is email those to myself or put them on a Dropbox, and then go to my PC, download them, boot up my editor, and go from there. And because I don't have a screen capture thing, I can't show you exactly how to use the editor, but there is an editor on YouTube. I think Senoba made it. If I'm pronouncing that name wrong, I am so sorry. Senoba, is that it? I'm pretty sure she made it, and if you just Google Primal Carnage skin tutorial in YouTube, it should pop up, and I would strongly recommend checking out that video on how to use that. So I'm sorry for my stammering, it happens sometimes, and for any stupid mistakes I've made, and for the inevitable Photoshop crash, but I thought this was at least slightly helpful, I hope. So, alright, see you guys. Bye.